Thanks for staying tuned. Now, let's move straight to London Market Street. And of course, my colleague, Juliana Olanka, is standing by, joining us now. Good morning, Juliana.
Good morning, Chimize.
Well, let's steer from the corporate world. HSBC plans to cut about 35,000 jobs over the next 3 years as part of a widespread overhaul after it reported a lower profit. How bad are things with HSBC and what will this cut mean for the job market?
Well, things for HSBC are tough, and they have been tough for the past 10 years or so. This is the third major restructuring that HSBC had done. And as you said, 35,000 jobs is a huge number. These won't be instantaneously. This is going to be phased out over 3 years. And it's believed by some that it will come through their investment arm of the business that will take the brunt of these job calls in US and Europe because they have been underperforming. It's a really competitive market for banking, for traditional banking, particularly here in Britain, because over the past 10 years, interest rates have been just so low, it's become very difficult for some companies to stay competitive and take in those huge amounts of profits that they would have taken in the 90s. And as you said, HSBC, they've seen a loss of about 33% in their 2019 profits if you compare it to what they banked in 2018. And also as well, Chimmy, we can't forget that HSBC's strongest market is in Asia. And not only have the Hong Kong protests really dampened their income, also as well, we've got the COVID-19 really affecting not just the banks, but even mainstream companies like Apple. So no, not great news for HSBC employees today.
All right, Shoe Zone seems to be one of those affected by property tax, as it has warned that it could be forced to close a fifth of its stores if business rates do not change. The budget will be presented on March 11. Do you foresee the reform of the business rate happening?
Well, absolutely. I think Shuzo is just one of several retailers in the UK that are really crying out, saying they are suffering because of these rates. Some areas of the country, rates are even more expensive than how much they are paying their rent. We know last year, 2019, was the worst year on record for the retail high street. The numbers that they had seen in their glory days are just not visible anymore, even on top of the Black Friday sales and the heavy discounting that people are trying to do. So Shoezone, they've come out this morning saying that they will have to close 100 stores if there is not a major overhaul of the rates business. Over the past decade, they've already cut 500 stores, and their chief exec was saying it's simple maths. If the rates are too high, they just cannot keep going, and this would affect over 2,000 jobs. Just last week, 50 of the biggest retailers did actually the now gone Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sajid Javid, saying that, they need to boost the high street, particularly outside of London, where high streets are literally dying. So yes, Shoezone have issued this urgent request to the government. And I suspect come March the 11th, when the spring budget is announced, that there could potentially be an overhaul to these rates.
Okay, Laura Ashley is another retailer in trouble. It's appealing for funding as sales fall 10%. Market headwinds and, of course, weaker consumer spending have dragged the UK retail market down lately. But are there other issues Laura Ashley might be possibly dealing with?
Well, there are issues, Chimmy, and it's similar to what I was saying about the UK high street. And Laura Ashley, for anybody who knows that brand, I know it very well. It's a classy brand, and they have a premium price on their products, and the consumer is just not willing to pay that price anymore. Since its heyday in the 90s, their shares have plummeted by about 90%. A couple of months ago, they did ask for a bailout from one of their major shareholders, who are part of the Wells Fargo US company. And they did agree to pay this £20 million bailout fee, but under some conditions. And unfortunately, Laura Ashley are yet to live up to those conditions. So now they're scrambling around trying to get the company to survive. There are rumors that a lot of the shareholders don't believe in their turnaround plan. They're just not confident enough, not necessarily in the brand, but just in the climate. The fact that if you can get something very similar for half the price online, that's what consumers are doing at the moment. But, you know, there still is time. We have seen struggling companies survive at the last minute. But yes, at the moment, staff and chief execs around Laura Ashley are pretty worried, because I think they employ about 3,000 people up and down the UK.
All right, Juliana, just before I let you go, what's the update on Storm Dennis?
Well, Storm Dennis is still wreaking havoc up and down Britain, particularly in Wales. There are still severe flood warnings in place. Homes, people have been evacuated from their homes, and a lot of people now are really knocking on 10 Downing Street, asking Prime Minister Boris Johnson, where exactly is he? We've seen this in the UK time and time again. And some are asking, you know, whether or not this has anything to do with climate change, whether or not the British government should be building the thousands and thousands of homes that they are on floodplains. But no, it's a really serious issue here. And already we know that there are a couple of people that have lost their lives. And according to the Met Office, which is the office we use to check the weather system in Britain, there are still strong winds and heavy rain expected later in the week.
All right, thank you, Juliana. I'm sure we'll get more update from you later in the day. Well, BC, I guess it's time to do an opening call to the market here.
Let's do that quickly. And Ajibola Ero-Phillips, who's the head trading at FBN Quest Merchant Bank, joins us to do that quickly. Now, what is the market reactions to the latest inflation numbers released this morning?
Morning. Markets is a bit quiet, a bit calmer at the moment, and that's just because there's a lot of liquidity in the market right now. So both fixed income markets, both the treasury bills and the bonds market are a bit bullish, especially the treasury bills market, and that's just because there's a lot of maturity. About $1 trillion matured last week, and there's another 600 or 400 billion maturing this week. So market is really, really, really bullish right now. There's a lot of illiquidity in the FX markets in itself. Rates have really, really gone high. We're touching about 365 on the bid right now. And that's just because there's just no float coming in from autonomous sources right now.
Well, tell us quickly, what are your expectations from tomorrow's bond auction?
For the bond auction, there's about there's 45, and 40 billion on offer for the 5, 10 year and 30 year. I expect the yields will go down slightly across board, and that's just because at the last bond auction, you've noticed that the DMO front loaded and sold off a lot of bonds at that auction. Right now, just because of the prevailing liquidity in the market, we expect that there will be a lot of investors that will be looking to tap into the market, and then the DMO should take advantage of that, and the yield should drop across board slightly. Nothing too much, just something marginal across all of the maturities on offer tomorrow.
Oh, we'll see how all that plays out. Ajibola Ero-Phillips, head FX trading at FBN Quest Merchant Bank. Thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Up on the show. Thank you for watching. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago.
And I am BC Adebayo. See you next time.